2, 1. Welcome to Behind the Visual, a podcast where I interview the people who are responsible for creating, putting together, and producing all the images and videos you see out in your world every single day. And today, my guest is the original #1 Village People Cowboy, YMCA, Macho Man in the Navy. This is the man who did it all, Randy Jones. So, what's going on?
And this is my cousin, Mark.
Hi. Yes, I am.
I mean, seriously.
You know it.
And here we are at wonderful Ocean Isle Beach.
Yeah.
Is this place beautiful?
It's amazing.
This
is a really pretty place.
Yeah, it's like I was just talking to you about Margaritaville and Jimmy Buffett stuff. But all we need is a cheeseburger here in paradise.
That would be good, and we'd be set.
Yeah,
we'd be
right.
Totally on top of it all.
I mean, this is beautiful, and I'm here in Ocean Isle this weekend to do a benefit for Advent Health and their behavioral science part of their hospital system. There's a lot of problems in smaller populated areas. I mean, I did not realize that in North Carolina, and some of you, I guess, North and South Carolina will be hearing this. Brunswick County has I think the highest number of suicides of any county in the state of North Carolina.
Really?
And a lot of it is attributed to opioid use, other medications and prescriptions.
Yeah, I'm watching started watching a documentary on Netflix called The Pharmacist.
Yeah.
Have you seen it?
No, but I saw that.
Dude,
that's on my list.
Dude's talking about how people went to this doctor who was giving out OxyContin.
Yeah.
And waiting up to 2 days to get in to see her. So they would go in and wait in the lobby, in the waiting room for up to 2 days. And some people would go get their scripts, go get them filled, and come back and sell them to the people who were waiting while they're waiting. And there was a New Orleans cop in the room while they were doing it all. It's ridiculous.
It's incredible. And in speaking with the people at Advent Health, this hospital system, which I think is all through North Carolina, maybe South Carolina too, for people who have either manic depression or schizophrenia or other things that they need medication for, if they and there's only one psychiatrist in the county of New Brunswick.
Really?
One psychiatrist. Lots of psychologists, but only one psychiatrist.
So if you're a psychiatrist, this is the place to come.
Well, I mean,
make a little bit of money.
If you don't want much competition.
Yeah.
But this woman was telling me that people like VA veterans, right, who see a psychologist or get a diagnosis and prescribed medication, sometimes if they go back into the VA system, it takes 2-3 weeks sometimes to maybe see somebody to get the medication or to have everything verified and approved by VA, so they can be, depressed.
Yeah.
And I guess that's maybe one of the reasons that people are as down as they are. Of course, I don't know why, but it seems like there's not enough joy in this world, so that's why we're here today. Let's not talk about depression anymore.
You're staying pretty busy.
Oh, you know what? You know me. I've known you your whole life. In fact, I'm staying busy. I was just the other day when you were in New York and we were having lunch, I showed you that picture of when you and your brother and your mom and dad came to New York, and you were like 9? Were you 9 or 11?
Like that,
10?
Somewhere around 9,
Yeah, 9 and 11 or something like that. And the three of us the photograph of the three of us looking up 6th Avenue in New York, and we were all three wearing these, little polo shirts, but they were Izod shirts. The ones I looked at it closely, and we each got an alligator on our shirt. So so I've been busy since way before then, but I'm busy as hell.
So tell me how the whole thing started. When did you decide that entertainment or getting out of North Carolina was what you wanted? How the Village People thing happened? How did all this? I mean, how did all?
My mom, who's here at the beach house here with us and for the weekend and for the event tonight, she reminded me. She said, because last night we went to see Sound of Music up in Wilmington at Thalian Hall, and she said, since you were 8 years old, you were never afraid to get up on stage and talk and sing in front of people. And she said other kids that age, they would have been terrified to get up there. So I don't think that I decided. I think it found me.
Yeah.
I think
Just born with it.
I think I have an instinct to be. I'm interested in people. I'm gregarious. Obviously, I can talk to a fence post, and I got that maybe from my dad because he never met a stranger.
Yeah.
But I remember when I was, and I started to tell you this story earlier, but I remember when I was maybe 5 or 6 years old, and in living in Raleigh, where we were born and raised, I was, and I had an aunt, my mother's sister. Her real name is Shirley Jones, but since there was already a Shirley Jones in the 50s,
Yes.
she had to change her name, and so she came up with. I heard her real name is Shirley Ann, so she changed her name to Leanne Drake, I think. I guess there was Alfred Drake, who was a star on Broadway, and so anyway. But I remember she had gotten into community theater in Raleigh, and then she moved to New York, and she was an actress there, and she met her husband there, and had a life and a career. But I remember she came back to Raleigh on a visit one time, and in my mind, there's certain privileges of maturity, where as time goes by and you try to remember things. There's a difference between writing. It's like the difference between writing an autobiography and a memoir.
Yes.
An autobiography is like strict facts where everything can be footnoted and detailed. A memoir is how I remember it. So this is my memory of my aunt, which I think is a little more, because I'm being a creative. But so in my mind, she was this actress in New York, and I'd seen her 8x10 shots, or what they used was composites. There were two smaller shots on one side. It was an 8x10, 2 pictures here and 1 here. Kind of what you do when you post stuff on Facebook and Instagram today. But so I had seen those pictures, and she, they were black and white, but I think there had been one color, and she, of course, had dyed her hair red, as I recall, and red fingernails and red lipstick, and it was the 50s, right?
Yeah.
And a fur coat. Probably, I don't know if she owned it or borrowed it.
So she came in looking like a full
or was
star.
gifted. So I had seen this photograph. So when she came home to visit, she came home with flourish, and she was flamboyant, and I loved her. She was young, a little younger than my mom, and my mom was young at that point because I was born when my mom was like 20, something like that.
Yeah.
So she couldn't have been more than 22 or 3. So she was like fabulous.
Oh, I'm
right?
sure. Yeah.
So I'm this little 5 or 6 year old kid, and she comes in, and in my memory of that first visit that I think was really, I was struck by, and she, if I could point to any one point that was an influence, she came in, and I think we were coming down to the beach, because we always went to the beach in the summertime and stuff. But in my mind, the tale that I've begun to spin, and I kind of told her about it, and she said, "Yeah, you can go with that one." The rest of the family drove down in their cars, but she had rented a sports car it was a convertible, and
nice.
she had brought me sunglasses like hers, and I had a little baseball cap, and so we took off. She's driving the tops down. We're driving to the beach for 2.5, 3 hours, and I'm standing up. This is before you had to put children in car seats, I don't think they were even seat belts. So she's driving like this, you're driving, and I'm like this, standing up right beside her with the wind blowing, and the ball cap, and the sunglasses, and I thought, okay, if this is what it means, and if this is what life is like outside of Raleigh, I'm willing to investigate what do I need to do next to get to the next step. So, but she kind of inspired me. But even, I think further back, our relative that we share, your grandmother,
Yeah.
Pauline and Paul.
Yeah.
Paul was a great musician in a band. He was in country music.
Yeah, he toured and everything.
That was something Ramblers, Johnson County Ramblers, or something.
Yeah.
With another uncle of mine from the other side. And they were these dudes in the 30s and the 40s with those fancy cowboy outfits and those not sombrero, but
the
big old cowboy hats and stuff. So, and I was aware of that, So maybe it goes back even.
What's in the family?
It found me.
Yeah.
I did not seek
You were
it.
born with it.
I was born with it.
Born in you.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And of course, then being raised, born in 1952, and if y'all can do math, you can figure out in 2020 I ain't young no more, but I'm youngish. I'm whatever. But I was watching Bred on television. Now, television today is different with reality TV.
Oh, yeah.
Back then, in the 50s, it was extremely popular. Warner Brothers and different studios.
Channels too.
Yeah, there were 3: ABC, NBC, and CBS. I don't even think they had educational television then, but it was very popular to have Western television programs like Wagon Train, Rawhide, Gunsmoke, The Rebel.
That's why Gilligan's Island got kicked off the air, was for Gunsmoke?
Well, I think Gilligan's Island came way after Gunsmoke.
No, I think it was Gunsmoke came on after. I think Gilligan's Island was on, and the wife of the head of the studio or the network or whatever really liked Gunsmoke.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was Gunsmoke. So she convinced him, since Gunsmoke was an hour long, and they needed that whole hour, that they had to kick Gilligan's Island to the curb.
Really?
To put on Gunsmoke.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
I think it was. I'm pretty sure.
Gunsmoke was on for about 24 years.
Yeah.
So it ran a long time, but there were all these great westerns, and Sugarfoot, Cheyenne, Paladin, Have Gun Will Travel. So I was inundated. Any night of the week, I could watch a program that had cowboys in it, and Roy Rogers and John Wayne and the Cisco Kid, any of those characters that were on television, and they may have been old movies that were then being recycled on television, but that's what my fodder was, as far as what I got to watch on television, but then. And then with the variety show of Ed Sullivan, entertainment on Sunday night. So this little kid's mind, I mean, we're talking 1952 to 1960, early 60s. I would watch a cowboy movie, where they shoot them up, and as much as they use guns, you never saw blood. You never saw anybody,
That's true.
And you'd shoot just once at somebody and they'd fall dead.
Yeah.
You didn't shoot them in the head. You never saw anything like that. So I'd watch a cowboy movie, then I'd have a palate cleanser of Ed Sullivan variety show.
Yeah.
But then I would be exposed to Liberace, wearing a jacket not quite unlike this, wear a jacket and tuxedo and sitting at a piano and playing great piano in the most flamboyant way with candelabra on it. So I mean, there's no way, I don't think I could, with all of those influences, and there were many, many more, but with all those influence, I don't think I could have arrived at any other position with and put all of that together into whatever this is that you're listening to hopefully today. But it's kind of wild, and that's, I guess, if there was a beginning, that all of that influenced us, but and then you came along. You came along much later.
Yeah, I was a little
I was an adult by the time you came along.
Yeah.
But his mama, I know his mama. I took his mama to Studio 54. So your mom's great. I love her.
So what put you up to New York?
I'm a product of the North Carolina educational system.
Yeah.
Elementary school, junior high school, or what they call middle, high school, University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill, and the University of North Carolina School of the Arts in Winston-Salem. I studied theater, film, and television, and then I studied dance. So, I mean, but once when I got to, and I was active every summer from the day I graduated high school on a Friday night. I was 17 years old in June of 1970. The next morning, I was in a car going unto these hills in the mountains of North Carolina to do the drama up in Cherokee.
So you didn't
North
waste any
Carolina.
time. You just got in the car, took off.
And every summer I did, in Raleigh, I would always do theater. I did theater in Raleigh Little Theater, community theater, children's theater, and then I started getting paid for it.
Yeah.
Which, when you start getting paid, you're a professional, whether you know that or not. That's why they call them pros.
Levels vary.
Yeah, but I mean, leave the money on the counter.
Yeah.
But so I started after high school. I went to that summer, performed at Unto These Hills. Came back from that, went directly into University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill. Never looked back, kept going, went from, and every summer worked at the East Carolina Summer Theater. I would work at, in Kentucky Summer Theater, in Jenny Wiley, all around like that, employed. When I got to North Carolina School of the Arts, after my first semester there, a woman, Agnes DeMille, who is a great American choreographer. She choreographed. She's famous for things like Oklahoma, Brigadoon, Carousel. I met her my second semester at North Carolina School of the Arts. She created a dance company and a theater company, and she cast me, and so I started working with her, and that was an entree to professional theater.
Right.
I'd already been equity through summer theater working, but she was, because we did television stuff with her, I became SAG and AFTRA and AGVA, American Guild of Variety Artists, which was for dance artists. And we toured the world and toured the United States. And I did that 6 months of the year while I was studying at School of the Arts. And we would rehearse, we would spend, out of a year, we'd probably spend 6 weeks throughout the year rehearsing in New York. So I would live in New York not only got the fever, but I had a secure place, going to school. I was, and working was like work study program. I got credit for doing that.
Okay.
As part of my school. To working in her dance company was essentially teaching. We were learning to be professional dancers, and that's what I was doing. So, but living in New York, I got to meet all the other 50% of the company that lived in New York that were professional dancers. I learned about what it takes to get an apartment, what it takes to ride the subway, how you maneuver, how you get along with the huge diversity of people that live in New York, the different languages, the different ethnicities, the different races. So I was exposed to that, but still had the security of knowing I was in school.
Right.
I had an apartment or a dorm in North Carolina, but so by the time '75 rolled along, Agnes she was doing a tour in the Midwest of Carousel, which was one of her ballets, and we had done some of the ballets that are in that in her company. So she knew that I knew how to do what that show required.
Yeah.
So she hired me to be the soloist for the ballet in the first act and the hornpipe in the second act, or vice versa. And it was great money. I think it was like 10 or 12 weeks. That's 1975, right?
Yeah.
10 or 12 weeks at $2,500 a week, and I was, union member.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, this is the perfect time to move to New York.
Yeah.
Because I worked, and they, of course, while I was doing that, they paid for housing.
Cash.
I was banking. I was stacking cheese. So by the time that tour ended, because they had given me a per diem as well as a housing allowance.
Right.
On top of that money, I just saved money. When I got to move to New York, I was once again, do the math.
Yeah,
and I had a sublet of an apartment from someone who had been in her company that needed someone to go in. So I slid so easily into moving to New York. It was not difficult. I had a place to live. I was a union member of 4 or 5 unions. I had money saved. I had minor carpentry skills, so a friend of mine who was in the company, when he wasn't working as a performer, he had a carpenter store. So I learned how to make cabinets and install. And so my thing was pretty easy. And I got hired. I went there to really kind of perform. I wanted to be on Broadway and musical theater. Well, I went and I waited in lines and I cattle calls and I auditioned, and no one cast me in the Broadway show, but photographers seemed to think I could be in photographs.
Right.
I mean, I'm not. Even then, I don't think whatever it was, I had that kind of a look for the 70s. I was decent.
You're good looking.
I was pretty decent.
Yeah.
I was what they were buying at that point.
Yeah.
And I had this mustache and stuff. And I worked, and I met Grace Jones, who
Nice.
does she was a model, and Jerry Hall and Iman and Debbie Dickinson or Janice Dickinson and Debbie, her sister, and just a whole slew of them, and worked with some of them on live, like runway stuff mostly.
Yeah.
Grace got a record deal. She needed a couple of guys to be on stage with her to help support her in her performances. And I learned because she was one of the first artists to ever go into bring a live dance. She was one of the first artists to go into nightclubs, discotheques, and perform.
Okay.
Other than that, people who heard a hit song playing in a discotheque, they might have only had an image of what a photographer had taken on an album cover. It was before videos, it was before that kind of stuff. And so what we did is we brought a live show in. And so I learned all about those aspects of, and it's not easy going into a different nightclub every night in a different city, but she always had lights, and she had that fog machine. And the fog machine, I mean the old style. The barrel, the big old barrel that you heat up hot water and you lower the basket of dry ice in there, and the fan blows out through a tube, and it's wet and slick on stage. You bust your ass if you don't watch where you're walking. So I learned all that, and when I was doing that, 2 Frenchmen came up to me at about 2 o'clock in the morning after one of our performances in New York. I'd been on stage with Grace, and if you Google it, you might be able to find their photographs. We didn't wear much. Yeah. I didn't wear much. I mean, it was probably a chain around my waist and a little leather pouch up front. It wasn't much. So, I would, after the show, you're kind of, and in those things, nightclubs, they weren't ready. They weren't really made for performers. In other words, there were no dressing rooms. You were probably changing in a bathroom or an office, right? So 2 o'clock in the morning, the show's over, and I'm getting off the stage, and I'm trying to get through the crowd, and I'm trying to get through to where my clothes are so I can put them back on. So here, I'm trying to get there from the stage, and 2 people pop up in my face, and they have French accents. And they say, "Hi, we are so-and-so, and we have a group called the Ritchie Family," which is the sister group to Village People. And we have a hit called Best Disco in Town. And we like what you do. We like the way you look. We like your mustache. We like the way you move. We want you to be in a group. Now, this is 1977 in New York City. I don't have any clothes on, and 2 strange men with French accents are talking to me about being in a group. Now, that could go either way. Yeah. That could go here or that could go there. So I said, sure, I'd love to talk to you. First of all, I'd like to get my clothes on. Second of all, I'll meet with you in the daylight, in the business office, in the daytime. Yeah. Because that was the great thing about having an education. I had been taught there's certain, they're professional standards. Yes. There are things. I mean, people can talk about all their casting couch and what they do or what someone forced them to do. Everybody got a choice. Yeah. So I figured, whatever it is with these guys, you give me your card, I'll call you, and we can set up a date. And I did. I went in, I met with them, we talked. They told me what their concept was for a group, and it was to all men, a brother group to the successful disco
first
act.
Boy band?
Well, if you don't want to, I mean, you can call the
Although you
Monkees
are right.
maybe were.
Maybe,
The
yeah.
Beatles really were. I mean, you know.
But you guys were actually put together by some. Well, I guess
Totally.
the Monkees were
No,
too.
we didn't know it. Yeah, the
just kinda
Monkees
put
were
together,
too.
yeah.
Even you can kind of say the Beatles were. Maybe John and Paul knew each other, but they were kind of put together by somebody. What was that guy, Brian Epstein? That was their
I don't
manager,
remember.
I
Yeah.
think. But yeah, I would prefer that we're the godfathers of the boy bands
There
as
you go.
opposed to being the grandfathers of the boy band. But yeah. And it took off from there. And I thought, when they told the concept, and we went right in and started recording and rehearsing, and we rehearsed and recorded for 3 months before we ever performed. I thought,
So the two French guys, did they write the songs?
they were composer and executive producer.
Okay.
And there were several people that wrote, really responsible for writing the lyrics and stuff.
All
But
So how's it
I thought, you know what? I needed 6 weeks of employment.
right.
That if at the end of that 6 weeks, if this job went away, I could collect unemployment for 22
Oh,
weeks.
okay.
So that's what I figured. I mean, I wasn't being, mercenary about it, but I figured,
Well, why not?
pay me on the books. Yeah.
Did you record in the studio before that?
No, that was the first time I'd ever recorded in a recording studio, and that's an art.
I would think so. yeah.
When people say recording artists, it's an art. There's a definite difference between singing, if you to a live singing performance,
Right.
and a recorded performance. I mean, there's a relationship between your ears, the sound you're making. Well, I mean, when you sing and just sing out into the air, what you hear is, you hear it in your head.
Right. Yeah.
It does not. What it sounds like to me does not sound like
No.
to you.
Yeah.
And what a recording artist, I think, does is we make the sound that we think we want to make, and it's recorded on the mic, and it travels through the wire, and it goes onto a piece of tape or digitally, and then it's played back, and you listen to it, and you hear. If it's exactly what you want, then you're good. But what you have to do is adjust what you're hearing in your head to what you want to have come out on the
Right,
tape,
yeah.
and that's an art, and there's technique, but it's also subtle adjustments that any artist does. Just like you use light, you use angles, you use now all the great digital stuff that can be done, and now they have auto-tune and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But it is an art. It's a craft and it's technique, and I did learn that, and I am so appreciative of that. Those two guys came up to me. That Grace had given me the platform. That I had come to New York. That whole journey that I just led you through. That tale, and there's so much more. I mean, there's swamps. There's mountaintops. There's drama. There's a memoir. I mean, I'm
Yeah, I was waiting on that
I'm
one.
waiting for a couple people to, go away so they don't mind their story being related. But it's always, it's been, as you know, and I've known you your whole life, I feel that I have had a blessed and wonderful life. It's not something that I absolutely planned, but I was open to opportunity, and my grandmother, she said to me, as I recall, I have my memory of her. She was afraid of water. She was afraid of the ocean. She almost
Really?
drowned once, I think.
Oh.
So she would not go into the ocean. She would walk in the air right where the water wets her feet. But early in the 60s, I would have talks with her, and she told me, as I recall, she said, be a good Boy Scout, because I'd been a Cub Scout and a Tenderfoot, and be a good surfer. And I thought, what is this old lady, what does she know about surfing? She doesn't even like to get her feet wet hardly. And that was when the Beach Boys and all that were coming out.
Right.
So, but what I took away from it is, as far as being a good Boy Scout, be prepared, be honest, and be courageous in what you're doing. You You get badges, or you used to, I don't know what Boy Scouts is today, but you get badges for being able to start a fire, being able to sew your buttons on, and be prepared. Get your skill set together.
Right.
And then with the surfing thing is that you have to have a certain amount of skill to be a surfer. I mean, I can't do it. I've never really tried it, but have a skill set together so that when the wave comes, you can ride it and know that wave will end.
Yeah, that's smart.
And when it's still water, you're sitting there on the surfboard. Have the faith, have courage, have the understanding that another wave will come. And so you're not, there's always going to be another wave. Be prepared to catch it. But during that interim in between the waves, have the courage and the faith to know that you're sitting on this board with your feet dangling over the side, that there's a purpose for that next wave, and for you, that the shark is not going to come and eat you. Because, so you have to, so all of those things that I think a surfer has, she meant. And so I've always taken those two things, a Boy Scout and a surfer. Be prepared, have your skill set, be confident of what you do. No, I mean, I don't know, just for me, I can't lecture and tell anybody else, but I mean, offer yourself up. Don't be afraid to take a chance. Be courageous. Know what you can do. Be good at it. I mean, nobody's good at everything. It seems like that sometimes with some people, but trust me, no one's good at everything.
I think that's good advice. You've got to be ready, especially when you're young. I think you need to take chances and just do these things.
Well, always.
Yeah.
I mean, even going last night, climb every mountain in the south in Sound of Music.
Right.
That's what that song is. Climb every mountain, ford every stream, try everything, follow a dream. You're never going to know if it's not for you. You're never going to know if you're going to be unsuccessful or successful at it unless you try it. Yeah. And I granted, parents and grandparents and advisors don't want people to get hurt or to be injured or to be disappointed or be disillusioned. But if you don't go 100% for it, then you're never going to know what it was like to either succeed or fall on your face. And failure is not something that's bad. Every time you fail at something, you learn, I ain't going to do it that way again.
Yeah.
I'm going to try it a different way, unless you're one of these people that bangs their head up, keep banging it against the wall, doing the same thing over and over.
Yeah.
It's, you know.
But I have to fail a lot of times to move forward.
You must. I think that's learning.
If you don't, you won't. You'll never really.
Well, it's as we said before. It's the truth. You have to fail, and in the world, in the population of 7 billion people, most of us are not winners. Most of us are not winners. Most of us lose.
Yeah.
There's only one. You know, for one Olympic event, there's a winner.
Right.
That gets the gold medal. I mean, there's a silver and there's a bronze.
But the other 15 people got nothing.
15?
Yeah.
100 people. How about the people that didn't qualify for the Olympics? You know, so I mean, most of us are losers, and I think that's the best thing a human being can learn, is that I'm not going to always be the best. I can be the best at one thing. I can be the best. You can be the best at being you.
Yeah.
There's no one else that does Mark Hansen the way you do. No one will ever touch the quality and the percentage of winning that you are as Mark Hansen.
You're damn right.
That's right. No one ever is going to be you. But and that in itself, I think if everybody could hold that in their heart and realize that, would give people so much incredible courage and so much confidence to move forward. But I don't know how many people or how to communicate to people to hold that in.
Yeah. I think if you look at things where there's enough for everybody, and just because you succeeded doesn't mean you took away something from me. I think I should be happy for you and look at you as an encouragement to keep moving forward and and do it.
Yeah, and because this world is a bounty. There's plenty for everybody. There's plenty for everybody, and there's more than enough for everybody.
I mean, one person may take that one gig that you wanted, But it doesn't mean there aren't 15 others over here that
That's
you
right.
could have. So
That's right.
I think you just need to be happy for them and move on and do your thing.
Yeah, I mean that's.
Yeah.
I mean, like as a photographer, where you got that book and you
Oh,
go
yeah.
into the office and you show here. This is what I do. Well, I do the same thing as an actor and a performer, and it took a while to get a mindset in that because I had to. It takes a while to be confident, and it takes training, and I think it takes a confidence not only in what you're doing, but in the training that you get from teachers. And it takes good teachers are the most vital thing in the world and important to people. But when I mean, it took a while for me to understand that when I go into an audition, it's like, those fish and tackle boxes that you open up and they got this drawer and it goes that. Well, I feel like when I go into an audition, I can say, you want this age range, you want this character type, and this is what the lines are. But you go in and I feel like, okay, I'm a performer here. I'm selling today. So you open it up and I got this and I got this and I got this. And I might have bananas this week, but I didn't get the job because you're buying oranges.
Right.
But that doesn't mean you're not buying bananas ever.
Right.
Next time I might come back and you're buying bananas. So you pull out everything and you show them what you got. And if they like what you've got or how you happen to put those elements together, could either not get the job, or it could you may do it in a way that completely changes what they thought they were looking for.
Yeah.
They may see something that is beyond and better or different than what they actually were looking for, and you might get the job.
Right.
So, but you
Absolutely.
have to be fearless. In this life, you have to be
You
fearless.
have to take the no's and know that it's not a personal thing.
That's the
Because
hardest thing
that's-
for most people to take, is the word no.
And they're critiquing of, you need to change this or do this, because I remember when I first started, and even now I still get it. I get, don't do this and don't do that. And the people I like the most are the ones who just tell me straight up front. I was having lunch with an art producer the other day in New York, and she looked at some stuff. She's like, no, this has got to go. Don't show that again. Do this. And when I first came to New York, I met a rep, and we were up there at and he's flipping through, and he looked at my book. He's like, what is this? I said, why is this in your book? It's like, he says, because it's a cover? I'm like, yeah. He goes, well, the photography's good. The model's not. The clothes aren't. The lighting's good. Your capture's good, but the rest of it's horrible. Take it out.
Yeah.
And I, just started shooting. And at first it freaked me out, but then my next thought was, I like this guy because he didn't just flip through my book and go, okay, thank you. This is nice. We'll let you know.
But it gives you advice on what they're buying.
Yeah,
I mean,
he told me,
some
you
people
need to do this.
yeah.
This needs to be better. You do that. And I learned a lot just from hearing that. And I'd rather have that than have somebody just go, thank you, and send you on your way.
Yeah.
And you never know what the problem was there.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. And I think if someone takes the time to help you to understand why they're saying what they're saying, that's where you learn. And those are good teachers.
Yeah.
And those are good mentors. But I think there's nothing like a basic core within you that kind of that's what I mean about being confident. You need to be confident in what you do, that you know lighting and you know this, and okay, so that's not a good model, so now I know to hire the good ones.
Yeah, so it helped me a lot because I knew certain things, but then also didn't take those criticisms as, God, I'm not any good, I'm never going to make it at this, and just fold it up, pack everything up, and quit. Every criticism I get, I take it and I try and learn from it, as opposed to being crushed by it, like some people.
Absolutely,
can be.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember the early days and being photographed by some really good people.
Yeah.
But I remember Francesco Scavullo. You remember him?
Yeah.
He was a great photographer. He told me one thing. He said, when you are on this side of the camera, on this side of the lens, being photographed, this is video, but with a still photograph, that's like 1/60th of a second, a blip, which is 1/60th of a second is 1/60th of a second, and a second is that. You know what I mean? So it's quick. So he said, for that brief instant, the goal of a model or an actor is to have the person on the other side of the camera, the photographer, number one, if possible, have them want to have sex with you.
Yeah.
Number two, if you don't think that's the possibility, have them want to be your friend. And have that extend not only to just that 1/60th of a second, the moment that that's going on, but throughout the whole session, and to extend to the editing process. Because that's where they can either spend the time to find exactly the right shot, or if they're being hired to do a catalog, they'll just throw any picture in there, or they won't touch it up a little bit, or they won't fix it. And today there's even more fixing going on than ever before.
That's for sure.
But he did really make that person on the other side like you. Yeah. The person photographing you, make them like you for the time. And that's not a bad thing for an entertainment and show business. You're looking through a lens to reach more than one person, and they should. I hope you like me. Do you like me? You know what I mean?
Right,
you have to. People. This business is one where people like you. Of course, you may be doing a horror movie where you want to terrify people, and I've done that.
Yeah.
But it's a remarkable thing that we're even here talking about media and entertainment and show business, and I'm glad you're doing this. That's wonderful.
I'm having fun with it too.
Yeah.
So once you got through recording your first album, when did you guys really?
We did our first performance, I think, on February 28th, 1978, which was 42 years ago.
Yeah.
Yesterday.
Yeah.
Or today.
Wow.
Yesterday.
Yeah. Yesterday.
We had rehearsed all winter, and we did our first performance, and I think that's when actually Macho Man was released, our first live performance with our band. Well, Macho Man, I think the single came out then, and then we started a tour bus, bus and two buses, the band on one, the group is on another one, and we traveled to all these clubs, and we played places that were probably 6 feet deep and 10 feet wide, and we had a 6-piece band and 6 guys up in the front trying not to fall off the stage with microphones and everything. So I mean, so we started that, and I gotta hand it to the record label Casablanca, the producers, all the production staff, everybody, all the support staff, and the publicity. Everything worked in such smooth, professional clockwork. The dates would be booked. We'd have the show. Dates would be booked. We would travel there. We'd check into the hotel. We'd throw the bags. We'd make sure we would dress the way that we were supposed to be dressed, the characters.
Right.
Then we would go do a signing at a record store.
Did you guys get a choice of what characters you wanted to be?
I brought this. I brought this.
Yeah, I was going to say, with all the cowboy influences.
When I went to the office, I was dressed kind of like, with a hat and the boots and all that. We would arrive in the town, we'd check in the hotel, we'd have a couple of hours, then we would go to a local record store, or we would first go to a radio station. We'd do a radio interview where they would play the song and talk about that we were in town. Right. Then we would go to the record store, we would do an in-store signing, then we'd come back to the hotel, we'd have an hour or two to eat, and then we would go and do the show. We would go sleep, we'd get up, and we'd go to the next town to do it again. And that's how we first got with that song on the radio, is every town that we would go to, do the radio, do the signing, do the performance, they would eventually, like the next week, add the song to the playlist. And it went up, and I think Macho Man probably topped out in the 20s on Billboard's Top 100 chart. Yeah. And it was the first one to really chart in the pop charts like that. And then later that year, we recorded the album with YMCA on it. Yeah. And that really took off. I mean, that's the song that most people know.
Was there a point that you showed up someplace or walked down stage and you just looked out and went, wow, we have actually made it now?
Well, it was being 22, 23 years old and having no one say, never hearing the word no, was kind of nice.
Sure.
At that age, you could stay up and do the show at 1 o'clock in the morning and go out and party and go back to the room, alone or not alone.
Right, yes.
And I remember yeah, all that great fun. And then you get up and, like rinse and repeat and do it again. And when you're that age, you don't need that much sleep, and your recovery is faster, and you're in your 20s.
Yes.
You're horny all the time. And that I think that's one of the things that was. First of all, we were attractive young guys. We were talented.
So is it just hardcore groupies backstage, nonstop, like multiple?
Front stage. Yeah. Stage manager, tell them the room number.
I'll say, did you ever, yeah.
Give them the key.
Yeah. I was wondering if you guys did that.
Oh, they were throwing their underwear at us, bras, panties. They were trying. Yeah.
I heard stories where the guys would be like, they would point out in the roadie or who
that's
was
right.
manager, like, okay,
that's reality.
Next thing you know, you got to pass.
That's
backstage.
That's reality. That's reality.
Yeah.
But it was a great thing. But it's great. It was great to do it in the 20s, and to have all of that, to have all of the success, to have the first class air travel. I've been traveling on the Concorde back and forth from New York to Paris and London.
Oh, yeah.
Even I think we flew once from Paris to Rio.
Wow.
You couldn't fly over the United States in it. You had to land at one of the coastal ports because it was supersonic, and it made that boom. But I mean, to go from New York to Paris in 3 hours and 12 minutes.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
I wish
really.
they still had that thing.
Yeah, well, I do too, but they don't.
Yeah.
But yeah, at the 20s, to do all of that and to travel and have access and to get to enjoy first class, to enjoy nice hotels, to enjoy money, to have all of that success, make movies in Hollywood, do television, was good to do it then.
Yeah.
Because I started to say I'm not a middle-aged man, and I'm right, I'm not a middle-aged man, I'm a little older, but I don't, sometimes people still hunger for that.
Yeah.
At 50 years old, they're hungering for the sports car, they want to always insist that they demand that they have this level of service or whatever, and so I don't have that hunger. I mean, I mean, it's nice, and I enjoy it, but I don't demand things. It's nice that people, I've somehow instinctively managed to create a life and a personality and a personhood that, as I told you when I said I finally arrived, because now I have performed for a class of kindergartners at Anderson Elementary School in New Hanover County. But so, or is it Hanover or New Hanover? I can't. It's Brunswick, New Brunswick, Hanover, whatever. But at Anderson, I did that, and I walked into that classroom. I stood in the doorway, and I saw 18 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds all dressed up like cowboys, grinning, smiling, and just like vibrating because they were so excited I was there. They had the videos of us doing YMCA on the screen, playing, and they were so. And I thought, well, how blessed am I to have a life that when I go to places, or I walk into a room, or I walk into an event, people are smiling, and they're welcoming most of the time. I mean, there's some people who don't like the sight of me, probably, but I don't usually associate with them, and they don't book me. Yeah. but I've had a great life where I feel like I'm a professional guest that comes to sing songs, tell stories, talk, and that's kind of when we touched on that earlier in our conversation. I draw very much from the Irish and the Welsh and the Celtic kind of our heritage, that there were when not cavemen, but when ancient times, when people needed to keep a fire going through the night because did you ever see that movie Quest for Fire?
No, I never saw it.
But before man really understood that he could make fire easily, it was difficult to make a fire, and you had to keep it burning through the night. And somebody had to stay up through the night to keep that fire going. stay awake
Right.
while everybody
Yeah.
else slept. But somebody had to. My theory is that somebody had to stay with the guy that's keeping the fire going, to keep talking to him and
To make
keep
sure
him
he didn't
awake,
fall
to
asleep.
entertain him, to
Yeah.
tell him stories, to keep him going. And I think that's where entertainers draw their heritage of we're the
I hadn't
people who
thought
had to
about that.
stay by, help that guy, tell him tales of the gods and the wolves, or
Right.
of romance, or recite poems, or sing songs. And then that grew to the point where before there was recorded music and recorded film and video, there were entertainers, there were minstrels, there were troubadours,
Right.
there were traveling groups of actors, and we didn't have unions, and we weren't employed in theaters, but there were rich people, there were kings and princes and dukes and wealthy landowners that since there was no recorded music or no TV to watch, they would have these people come to their estates or their fine homes to put on shows,
Right.
productions for their friends to show that they could afford to do it. So not only were we brought in and housed and given food or a little bit of money, maybe if there was
Right.
money, to do what we did, whether that be recite poems of yore and of gods and of past princes and kings, or whether we sang songs, or whether we did little plays or little dances, entertainments. And that's where I think I really do draw heritage from what we do today and what we see today. Of course, I make absolutely no damn claim to reality television. I think that's that's a whole other kettle of fish.
It's completely,
But it's
totally
still,
different.
but entertainment is something that has risen from the first campfires when people needed to have something to distract them from the rigors of life, the fact that they had to go out and kill a bison or
Right.
something to eat, or to labor in the fields during the day.
That makes sense. I mean, that's why you got the movies. That's why you have the TV.
Yeah.
How was it doing your first, like when you guys did the movie? Was that a
Can't
totally
stop the
different
music.
experience?
Oh my! Well, yeah.
What was it
'cause
like behind the cameras and all that? I mean, was there a lot of?
It's a book. Well,
Well, even
well,
just on set, like when you're having to do everything. I mean, it's just, I know, at least from my experience being on some sets, there's a lot of sitting around.
There's a lot of that, but
and retakes and retakes and.
and that to some I know, to Justin and the group, I mean, some people.
And most of you guys weren't actors, right? I mean, I know you were,
Some,
'cause you'd been
yes,
acting.
I was. Victor was. Well, Victor was in the movie. David was. They weren't. No, they were not professional actors
Right.
before. Some people, anybody who's a trained, some actors deal with that in different ways. I think there's different ways that professionals look at
Was
it.
this one of those things where you guys were just so popular at the time that like, let's make a movie?
Yeah, Alan Carr, who had produced Grease,
Right. Yeah.
and made, I think, $30 million off Grease. He had an idea. He saw us in a concert, and afterwards came backstage. We were introduced to him by our producers, and he said, "We've got great news for you. We want you to come to this dinner." So we went to a dinner, and there were all these. It was in Sunset Boulevard at a place called La Dome in L.A., and he made an announcement that he was going to make a movie starring Village People, with Village People music, and it was going to be the biggest musical of the 80s. And this was 1978 or 79. 78, we got word of it, and we started shooting in 79. But some actors, first of all, I think if you're a professional, you understand the process. Then you don't see, if you have to sit and wait, you don't see that it's not an imposition on you, and it's not, it's part of the process.
Right. Yeah.
Sometimes a light blows, or sometimes things have to be fit, and I did, having, thank God, public education, a good college education.
Yeah.
I understood what that process is, and I understood that instead of getting bored, which I've never been bored in my life, I could sit alone in a room and entertain myself. I know, it's not a shocker. I've never been bored. I'm ultimately interested and curious. But I thought, okay, well, I want to I can learn what that little thing the director's looking through, or the camera, the director of photography. You could learn so much just by being there.
Yeah.
And take advantage of those times, that the downtime, because the time that you actually take to shoot a movie is like, a scene may go on for 2 minutes or 3 minutes, or it may only be 3 lines.
Right.
So the time that you actually see in an hour and 20 minutes or 90 minutes in a film, it took hours and days to make that. And that's why even today, if I'm in a movie theater, I will sit until the last credit goes, because every one of hundreds of people, hundreds of people it takes to get those few minutes, that hour and 20 minutes or 2 hours that you actually see. It took the efforts of hundreds of people to get it to that point.
Oh, yeah.
And every one of them is an artist and a craftsman and a technician, and they all deserve the least they deserve. I mean, they deserve the money that's paid,
yes.
but the least they deserve is the respect to see their name.
Yeah.
And you may not read every one of them,
Right.
but it's a bit of respect.
And I think it's a big thrill, because I know people who've done it, and when they see their name on the credits for the first time, like, hey, that's me.
That's right.
Yeah.
And you know what? That's why film, even theater and recording, it's not something I may be the only voice on that record, or you may be the star of a movie or something, but you didn't do that by yourself.
Right. Exactly.
You didn't do that that person did not do that. That might be the star. Their name might be above the title, but they would not be there. It's like a woman who, when I worked with Agnes DeMille, she was the wardrobe woman, and she was notorious. Where we learned, if you didn't hang your costume up after the show was off, when you took it off, you're supposed to hang it up. If you didn't hang it up, she was $5 fine, $5 fine. She would fine you $5 every time she had to pick up a costume.
Wow.
So I learned from her that just keep your eyes open and observe that all the jobs that have to be done for you. You're out on stage, you have the lights on you, someone's playing the music, you have the microphone,
right.
and they're hearing and they're focusing on you. She said, but guess what? I take away that costume, that sound engineer turns that mic off, they turn those lights off, no one plays the music. She said, where are you? She says, you can stay home and sing in the closet in the dark for all I care, but if you can't respect all the people, the support that goes to get you out there being featured, then you, first of all, you don't deserve it, I don't think. Yeah. And second of all, you don't respect all the people that have to use their art, their craft, their technique to show you off.
Even little things. Like I saw one time a comedian end up paying the price because she had a cue that she had told the audio guy ahead of time, this is what I'm going to say, and when I say it, hit play. Here's my recording. Well, she didn't say the cue. She said something else, but it wasn't the cue. And
he was waiting for exactly what
cue. And so then she was like, hey, hello, Helen Keller, you going to do something?
Yeah.
So then the audio guy was like, and hit the button and let her play it. She had a show right after that. So she had 2 shows back to back. Next show, audio guy just sat there. She said the cue this time, and he just sat there.
He just sat there.
And he did, he made her sit. It was 15, 30 seconds.
But just enough that that she got the point.
Yeah, she understood.
That's the thing. If you, that's where ignorance and arrogance and can just are terrible. Yeah. And they can, not only does that apply to life and show business, but it applies to life in general. You may think you're all that, but you ain't all that without all them.
Yeah, exactly.
You ain't all that without all them.
Yeah, I know movies, there are just tons of people, and I'm sure on Can't Stop the Music, they're having tons.
Nancy Walker, the director, right?
Yeah.
Nancy Walker, she directed it. She was the one that did all the Bounty paper towel commercials.
Yeah.
She played Rhoda Morgenstern's mom on Mary Tyler Moore and Rhoda. She was the director, and I remember one day early on in the shooting, I was having something with a scene, lines or whatever. She said, "Don't worry about it, honey. Come to me. Come to my trailer at lunch. We'll have lunch together, and I'll help you run the lines, and we can talk about it." So I went there, and she was like 4'11".
Yeah.
She had literally been born off stage.
Really?
And when her parents were Bardo and Bardo, a vaudeville team, and her bassinet essentially was a trunk off stage while her parents performed.
Wow.
They would bring her to the theater, keep her, she'd stay off stage in the trunk,
Yeah.
and they'd perform, and she'd come back and they'd go back to the hotel. So she was really, she had show business in her blood, really. But she was great. She was short. She had stubby little fingers. She had nicotine stains. She smoked a lot, you know.
Yeah.
She always had a manicure, but she still had
Still
nicotine
had the
stains
stains.
between and she had a facelift, an old school facelift.
Oh,
the ones
wow.
where you have that little J
Oh.
scar that goes like that, and then the little hash marks.
Yeah.
And she'd wear her hair so it covered it, but you know. So, but she was a great lady, nanny, and I think of her. But she said something to me that another eye-opening, understanding thing. She said, "Honey, don't worry about this." She said, "You know, we shoot these little scenes, and 2 or 3 minutes, and even the musical numbers were choreographed like videos,
Right.
where you shoot 3, 4, 12 seconds, and then it cuts, fast cuts.
Yeah.
That's how that movie especially is done with the musical sequences." But she said, as far as the lines and stuff go, she said, movies are nothing but little pieces of shit snipped together to make something pretty for people to look at. And it's true. I mean, what you don't see is what you don't see.
That's why you have to have a good editor.
That's the editor is the most important person.
Because they can take something great and make it crap, or something that's crap and make it great.
And once everything's been shot, the director and editor can sit down and tell a completely different story from what was photographed and what was intended to be. They can change the story.
So in that movie, you guys, Bruce Jenner was in that. Yeah, right?
Well, I think it's Caitlyn Jenner now.
Well, at the time, it was Bruce Jenner.
But Bruce.
Was that Bruce Jenner, Caitlyn Jenner, whatever? Was that the first time acting?
I don't know if it was.
Do you know?
I don't know if it was his first movie, but I know he had done things like Chips,
or
at least. I don't know if he'd done it before. We did Love Boat.
How was that? Were you guys actually on the boat?
There was no
were
boat.
you on a real? Yeah, I was going to say, was there even a boat
I
at
know.
all?
I think once or twice a year
They took it out for a special episode.
they would take a boat from California down to Acapulco or somewhere like that, and they'd shoot a lot of stuff. I was never on a boat. I think it was at MGM Columbia, one of the studios where they had the sets,
the whole sets.
With the pool and the gangplank where you enter, and then I think for one of the episodes we did, the storyline was everybody getting on the boat it's a cruise that's people who have race horses, and they're going to down to wherever, Tijuana, wherever, Acapulco, to a racetrack down there. And so everybody brings their horse on, and so we at studio we did getting on the boat and the scenes around the pool and in the staterooms and all that. But then we went out Pasadena, I think, is a raceway out there. One of those like that. It's where we did the scene, and it was done up with all the Mexican flags,
of course.
So it looked like it was in Mexico, and the horse, and I think Felipe was actually the jockey on the horse.
Oh, really?
And he barely stayed on, or stunt man, whatever. But yeah, it was fun. It was with Betty White.
Oh, yeah.
I'm really proud to be one of the few people that I know, maybe that you know, that's made a Love Boat episode with Betty White.
You're the only person I know.
I know.
You're the only person I know who's made a Love Boat episode.
Yeah,
So.
right, but that's a whole other thing too. And Robert Stack, Betty White, Betty's Alan Ludden, her husband who's passed. A lot of people, and to have had a life and a career that's crossed paths with people like Hugh Hefner and Bob Hope and Dick Clark.
Did you get to go to Playboy Mansion?
A lot.
Multiple
I had
times?
a bedroom at the Playboy.
Did you?
Oh yeah. In fact, Dorothy Gillespie, Dorothy. Oh God, what was Dorothy? Is her last name now? The one who was shot
Oh yeah.
by Paul. Her.
I can't remember. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Not
but I
Gillespie.
can't remember her last name.
Yeah, God, I can't believe I can. You know, that's what happens.
Yeah.
But she was a great gal.
They
I
made
went
a
out
movie
with.
about it.
Yeah, Star 80.
Yeah.
At public dates, we did a couple publicity dates with
Yeah.
her a couple times. She was a great gal. She was young, 19, 20, 21 years old. But to go out there was really fun. And Hugh Hefner, we had 5 godfathers, I think, in L.A., in Hollywood, that if they had not liked us and liked what we did and understood it,
Yeah.
we would have never achieved the same amount of level of success. Hugh Hefner, Bob Hope, Dick Clark, Merv Griffin, and Don Kirshner. They hired us to be on all of the television programs multiple times, and but Hugh Hef, he was something else. He had us. We did 2 or 3 specials with him at the mansion. It was always I always had if I was in town and I called him or called out to the mansion, they say, "Yeah, come on down. Do you need a room tonight?" You know, I mean,
Nice, yeah.
and it was a big place, and it had that. They had a whole zoo there, and they had the pools and the
Grotto.
yeah, all that was all of it, right? You know.
Yeah.
And you'd see, I mean, it was where a lot of bachelors
Oh,
that
I'm
were
sure.
newly
Yeah.
divorced or whatever would come there, and it was like they'd play in that. It was like, because, especially on Sunday, it was either Sunday night or Friday night. The aspiring young actresses, they would bring in 2 or 3 busloads once or twice a week. I think it was Sunday night, because they would make a huge meal feed, and there'd be beautiful girls there,
Yeah.
and folks that wanted to meet them would
Right.
come as well. And I mean, it was it was the 70s.
Yeah.
You know, it was the 70s and the 80s, and it was the Playboy lifestyle, and it was what he created when he first started in 1950 with Marilyn Monroe. But I listened to him after I was there one night, and it was on that staircase that went upstairs, and he was of course in his pajamas and robe like he
Yeah.
always was, and I think everybody had smoked pot, and so he was in a talkative, pensive mood, and he said, we were sitting on the steps, and he said, you know why I like you guys? I thought, oh, this is the moment that Hugh Hefner's going to come on to me. And you know what? I honestly thought that. I thought, oh no, don't put your hand on my knee. He said, you know why I like you guys? I said, no, I mean, no. And he said, I get what you're doing. He said, I did the same thing with Marilyn Monroe. I did the same. It's exactly what I did with Playboy magazine. He said, you guys sell a fantasy.
Yeah.
You walk right up to the line, but you don't cross and offend people. And you do it with utter charm, and you do it with enthusiasm. He said, you do something that people can't resist. I mean, what we did,
Right.
we were charming, we were cute, we were young kids, we were enthusiastic, we had a certain level of talent, we had some songs that were well crafted, we had production value, and we appealed to the widest range of people, whether it be politically on whatever part of the spectrum, whatever age group, racial, all the different diversity that's in any world or community or town, we somehow enjoyed it.
Yeah. Well, I think you could tell it, and I think that's why people liked it so much, because it was just fun music. It wasn't.
Totally.
It was just,
I mean, kids liked it,
Yeah.
grandmas liked it, teenagers. You know, I mean, and it did succeed. I mean, it succeeded to the fact that I think, as of December 31st, we sold about 138 million records.
Wow.
I mean, that's a lot of units.
Oh, yeah.
And I think on YouTube, there's probably close to 1 billion views. That's a lot of eyeballs.
Yeah, it is.
And you know it, that just keeps
That's a ton.
tick, 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 tick. Numbers go by. So I mean, I could have never, at 22 years old, 23, thought or planned or expected 42 years later for this to have had the result that it's had, or the staying power, or the fact that I would walk into, at 67 and a half years old, walk into a 5th grade kindergarten class and be excited with them about a song called YMCA and teach them how to, it was their week of, it was called Letter Week. So they were learning about the alphabet.
Okay,
and so
that makes sense.
Well, it's perfect.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
just perfect. And you just don't know, as a young artist, if you are out there and you're listening and you're contemplating doing, photography, film, video, entertainment, whichever side of this wonderful medium that we're on right now that you choose to be, you never know what results your behavior and your activity and what you do today is going to have. So I think, drawing on all of that we talked, do it with a sense of confidence, do it with a sense of courage, be fearless, do it in the light. I mean, without light, there's nothing. Walk a path that's lit. Be honest. Be honest with yourself and be honest with others. And if I could write a manual and do a weekend where I could charge people to come and tell them how to have any kind of success, either as a person or as an artist, I'd probably put that in the book and do it. But you can't. You can never tell another person what path they should walk.
Yeah, absolutely.
But there are things I think that can help one be successful on a path. But I definitely think being honest, being open, and walking in the light helps.
So what point did you decide being the cowboy, the Village People, and touring with them was not what you wanted to do anymore, and that you wanted to go out and do your own thing?
Well, I've been with my husband for 36 years. And the first time I left the group, I'd been with about 4 years, and I was exhausted.
Yeah.
And I'm the kind of person, I don't like to quit anything. So I usually can make myself so miserable that other people don't want to be around me. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I was exhausted. After 4 years or so, 4.5 years, I was literally exhausted. And the group was changing. It was at that period of time when 81, when people thought disco was dead. And so the producers wanted to change the imagery of the group. They wanted to destroy those characters and do makeup like the Steve Strange, this European new romantic kind of thing.
Right after you left, when they did some weird kind of...
I left because I didn't want to do that. Because I thought, wait a minute, we spent millions of dollars developing a loyal audience to these characters.
Yeah.
What happened is those characters, some of us were getting a little more attention than the producers really maybe wanted us to have.
Yeah.
So they thought, well, the best way to do this is get rid of those characters and put them in makeup and like Kiss, and you don't know who the hell any of them.
That album came out, and I looked at it, thought that's the weirdest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, so I left before that album came out.
Yeah.
And it was also a transition period when Neil Bogart had sold his last 50% of Casablanca to a German record group, Polygram, and our deal was, the production deal with the record label was that if Neil Bogart ever leaves this label, it's a key man clause, we have the right to leave the label as well and seek another label. So the production deal with Casablanca ended, and we went with RCA. And RCA had bought a cowboy and an Indian, a construction worker, and a soldier and a cop and all that. And what they got delivered to them was 6 guys in makeup and new romantic kind of clown-looking stuff.
Yeah, it was weird. It was very strange. I remember
So
seeing that.
it didn't succeed, and the group imagery went back, but it was kind of it was a big, huge misstep, and the group kind of dissipated. I left because I just didn't think I thought that was a slap in the face to all the people who we developed as loyal fans. So I left. 81, went and I recorded. My first solo effort, which was Pretty Woman and 3 or 4 country songs. It didn't have a lot of success, but I recorded it, and it was a great thing being a solo artist, to learn, have that experience.
Right.
And then I met my husband, Will Grega, in '84, and we recorded stuff together. We recorded a couple of things, a pretty successful thing called Terrorist Attack, right about when Gaddafi was blowing up things and we were bombing them, and that had got some traction. Then we did a couple of things like a couple other tunes. But then we were about 86, listening to the radio in New York. It was like Madonna was, out and it was freestyle and stuff, and I thought, wait a minute, disco's dead? That sounds like dance music, disco music to me.
They just don't call it disco anymore.
Yeah, it's like Gloria Gaynor. She said disco didn't die; they just changed the name.
Right. Yeah.
Right. To dance music. So I thought, wonder what the guys are doing. The group had kind of fallen apart then, and the guys were doing other things. None of them I was actually performing. They were doing other jobs, and which I thought was strange. But I had a birthday party in 1986, of which I pretty much had one every year. For years it was at Studio 54. But I had a birthday party in '86, and I thought, Will, he said, what are the other guys doing? He said, we should maybe, why don't you, because we had a couple ideas for covers for a song, and I thought, well, let me see. What I had done is, do you remember there was a Rocky movie? Yeah. And Dan Hartman, who had success, he did Instant Replay, did that song, and he had also written Free something with Edgar Winter Group. Okay, yeah. Something. It's like a rock tune. He was a good friend. He lived in Connecticut. I would go up and visit with him on the weekends sometimes. And he said, I'm writing this demo for this movie. They want me to write the song. He said, but I want it to sound like a Village People song. He said, can you come up for the weekend and do the backgrounds with me and make it sound like that male chorus of Macho Man or In the Navy, that kind of stuff. And he said, and we did the hand claps and we did the backgrounds, and he did the lead vocal for the demo. And I said, yeah, I'll do it. And we went up and we had fun doing it. And he sent it to the people, and they bought it. Wow. And they took his vocal off and put James Brown's vocal on it, and it's Living in America. Really? Living in America is a Village People song, essentially. And if you listen to it with your eyes closed, you think, wow, that's like that could be James Brown singing a Village People song. I can hear that right? Now. And it was in Rocky 2 or something like that. Yeah. And so when that happened, Will said, well, what are the guys doing? And so I found them all and invited them to the birthday party because I wanted to see, if we could all be in the same room and not argue, or, if we could get along. And we did. And then that was the year that a guy called David Fishoff, who was a manager. He managed a baseball pitcher, but that was the year he expanded, and he put together the Monkees tour, that reunion tour and I went to him and said, I was in Village People. What do you think? Do you think he said, find out what condition they're in, find out if y'all get along, and he said, let's have a meeting. So we did, and the guys came in and they said, yeah, we'll do it. It was everybody from the film. Right. Okay. Victor was not included, said, yes, we'll do it, but we don't want to have to. We want to only be able to do that. We don't want to have to work these other jobs that we're working.
Yeah.
And so I worked with David, and we figured out how we could do that, which was book. We had always been very popular, and I mean, we were popular in the United States,
Right.
but we were all very popular overseas.
Heard that about a lot of bands.
Bigger,
like that,
yeah,
they're
even
huge.
bigger overseas.
Yeah.
Japan, and I mean, that's the whole line. I'm big in Japan.
Yeah.
But we were huge in Australia. I mean, like, really huge.
Yeah.
I think Can't Stop the Music, that song and a couple others were on the charts. We were on the charts for over 52 weeks there.
Wow.
Yeah. So we thought, let's start it back there.
Yeah.
So we booked a 6-week tour there, and of course, the tour, which is where I learned, get pay the lady first. Pay the lady. And so we got 50% of the money up front,
Smart.
which financed paying everybody's salary for the rehearsal period.
Right.
And so that's what we did. We did first, got everybody rehearsed, got a show together, got the band, and we went to Australia and broke everybody back in that. And that's where it started. Got back together, recorded some stuff, had a couple of hits that we recorded for Australia. And then I stayed with it from then until 91, 86
Right.
to 91. And then by that time, Will and I had been together for 6-7 years.
Yeah.
And it was getting to the point where, if you're a solo artist, you decide when you're going to work and when you're not going to work. But if you're with a group, either everybody works or nobody works.
Right.
And
Yeah.
if you don't, if the group is booked and you've got a family wedding that you want to go to and you don't go, and the gig's not done, then you're literally
Right.
taking money out of their pocket.
Yeah.
So it got to the point where I realized that my relationship with Will, my husband, was more important than my relationship with 5 other guys.
Right.
I had to decide between 1 man and 5 men, and I was too old for the 5 men. I just made a choice.
Yeah.
I made a choice, and that was in the early 90s. And after a couple of years, I started getting an itch to perform and stuff. And I mean, I shot 1 or 2 little independent movies, but I got a real itch, and he encouraged me to say, well, what is it? It doesn't take, all you got to do is record stuff, and
Yeah.
and you can go out and do it by. So since early 90s, I've
You've been
been
busy.
doing me.
Yeah.
I book, I'll sing, and I don't have a lot of, some people say sometimes, don't you get tired of singing YMCA? Do you get tired of singing in the Navy? And I think, would you get tired of singing a song that you've sold 50 million copies of? Or would you, maybe some people do, but I don't.
Yeah.
If someone wants to book me to come sing YMCA, yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Did the check clear?
Yeah.
Can you pay the airfare, business class minimum?
Yeah.
And show me the hotel confirmation. Yeah. Please. Thank you. I mean, not only thank you, but thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate the opportunity to go, because if you can't tell by now, the experience is not just me getting up on stage and singing YMCA. I want to meet new people. I don't mind. I like talking to you. I like listening to you. I love going new places. I like being that character, that troubadour, that minstrel, that person that comes to town. I'll be there for a day or 2 or 3. I'll stay with you. I'll talk to you. I'll talk to your friends. I'll take pictures with everybody. I'll sing a few songs. I'll tell a few stories, and then I'm gone.
Right. Yeah.
But my goal is always to leave a good taste in everybody's mouth.
Leave them wanting more.
But
Absolutely.
at least that was
Yeah.
pretty good. I might not want that every day,
Yeah.
but I might want it again.
Absolutely.
I want to, I always want to be a good guest that's has the potential to be
I
invited
think
back.
you nailed that. Speaking of, we're running slowly out of time.
And battery.
Yeah, probably running out of battery. So I definitely want to have you back because I want to hear all about Hefner. I want to hear about 54. But what is, and just give me one because I'm sure there's plenty of them. What's probably one of the strangest things that happened to you since you got into being a performer? And it can be from when you were graduated at 17 or just
strange or
yeah.
Well, probably
strange, unique.
Well,
whatever.
First meeting those guys from Village People, that's pretty interesting. I think when we, as I recall, when we opened, after we shot Can't Stop the Music, it was edited, we went around the world to about 16 different territories to open it in cities. And I think we had 8 or 9 cities in the United Kingdom, Scotland, Wales, and England, that we had opening nights. Big, and they did it big. It was like, riding through town in double-decker buses or in vintage cars and cheerleading squads and marching bands and all. It was it was over the top. Alan Carr was a showman. I remember it was a royal performance for the Queen and whatever in London. And they showed the movie.
Did you meet the Queen?
Yeah, that's what I'm telling you. That's what I'm telling you. And so it's after they put us through, said, the certain protocol. First of all, you don't speak to her until she speaks to you. You never touch her.
Right.
You don't touch the royal property is how it was phrased. And, women curtsy and men kind of bow. And some of the guys had to get that figured out. Because I'm sure I think a couple of them got nervous and did the wrong one. But we're standing there, and she's of course with her purse, and she comes down the line, and she speaks to people. And so when she got to me, I'm standing there, and I've never done this before. So she said, we loved the movie. We loved that Can't Stop the Music. And she said, and she said, and I love YMCA. And then she leaned into me, and she put her hand on my elbow and whispered in my ear. She said, and I've always loved cowboys. And then she comes back and takes her hand back and moves down the line. And I thought, oh,
I hear you,
Liz. I hear you, lady, Liz. Yeah, and so that was pretty wonderful experience.
Wow, yeah.
And I did actually, her mother, who was another character, who died at 103 or 4 years old, and has got the country literally through the 30s and the Second World War, was a great woman, and she made a devastating gin and tonic.
Really?
Yeah, and I cocktails to her a couple times. She was great.
Wow.
But I mean, I know. So it's been it's a life
incredible.
It's a life that's a memoir.
Absolutely. I can't wait to read that when that comes out.
But let me tell you one thing I do. I've not kept what people would call a formal journal. But what I have done in my life is I have every year of my life, and every time I have a recollection, every time I have a memory to be reminded of, every time I have a conversation with someone and they ask me about something or they spark a memory, I go back to that, whatever that year and that whatever, and write about it. And so when we started this, and I mentioned that there's when anyone is recalling their life, whether they write about it as formal autobiography or if they write it, there's a wonderful thing about memory, and there's a wonderful thing about having a life that you're happy with and that you're pleased with and that you're grateful for and feel blessed to have had. But to recall it and remember it, it's that person, it's your prerogative, it's your privilege, it's your blessing to remember it the way you want to remember it. It was your life, you lived it, and absolutely no one has the right to tell you how to live it, how to remember it, and how to share it. So go forward with that, honestly.
And with that, I think we're going to end it.
God bless y'all.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you guys for watching, listening, all that stuff. If you like this thing, subscribe to it, like it, make a comment, share it with your friends, do something already. All right? So, thank you guys for watching Behind the Visual with Mark Hansen and Randy Jones.
Bye,
See
y'all.
you guys. Bye.
See you again.